Sometimes, the loudest stories are told in silence. Today, we uncover one of them, a tale you'll carry long after it ends. It was a quiet morning in Arlington National Cemetery, where countless white gravestones stood like sentinels in eternal vigilance. Among them walked a man whose presence seemed more like a shadow, a keeper of the forgotten. His name was Aadan, a former Marine, burdened by a past he couldn't escape. Aadan wasn't always this way. Once, he was vibrant, a leader among men, a father to a boy who idolized him, and a husband to a wife who believed in him. But life changed on a dusty road in Afghanistan when an IED tore through his convoy, leaving behind smoke, fire, and silence. When the chaos subsided, Aadan was the only one left alive, a survivor who didn't know if he wanted to be. The memories of that day clung to him like a shroud. Why him? Why did he live while his brothers in arms perished? These questions haunted him, gnawed at his soul, and pushed him into isolation. His family tried to pull him back, but the distance grew, until one day, Aadan walked out, leaving behind his wife and son. He told himself it was for their sake, but deep down, he knew it was guilt that drove him away. At Arlington, Aadan found solace among the dead. Here, no one judged him, no one asked questions, and no one expected him to move on. The rows of gravestones became his companions, the gentle breeze his only solace. But even here, the ghosts of his past found him. On this Memorial Day, Aadan stood at the gates, watching the crowd gather. Families of the fallen came to honor their loved ones, their grief palpable. Aadan was a silent observer, unnoticed and unacknowledged, until the arrival of a motorcade broke the stillness. Out stepped President Donald Trump. Aadan had seen many dignitaries visit over the years, but something about this day felt different. As the president moved among the families, shaking hands and offering condolences, Aadan noticed a change in the man's demeanor. Gone was the bravado he'd seen on television. In its place was a quiet solemnity, a weight that seemed to press down on his shoulders. But it was a single moment that caught Aadan's attention, a moment that would change everything. Amidst the crowd stood a boy no older than 6, clutching a folded American flag with hands too small for the weight it carried. His mother stood behind him, her eyes red from tears, but it was the boy's gaze that held everyone captive. He stared at the president with a mixture of bravery and vulnerability, as if trying to embody the strength his fallen father once had. Trump knelt to the boy's level, his towering presence shrinking to meet the child where he was. He whispered something in the boy's ear, words too soft for the crowd to hear, but their impact was undeniable. The boy nodded, his lips quivering as tears streamed down his cheeks. Aadan watched from a distance, his chest tightening. This small, tender act struck a chord he thought had long been silent. For years, he had dismissed politicians as out of touch, using symbols of sacrifice for their gain. But now, he saw something different, a genuine connection, a moment of humanity that transcended titles and power. As Trump rose, he placed a hand on the boy's shoulder, his voice carrying over the quiet crowd. "Your father was a hero," he said, his tone steady yet filled with emotion. "And so are you." Those words lingered in the air, resonating with everyone present, but none more than Aadan. He felt a crack in the wall he'd built around himself, a fissure that let in a sliver of light. As the crowd began to disperse, Aadan found himself rooted in place, his mind a whirlwind of memories. He thought of his own son, now a teenager, who had once clung to him with the same innocence as the boy with the flag. Aadan had walked away from that boy, convinced his presence would only bring pain. But now, for the first time in years, he questioned that decision. Lost in thought, Aadan didn't notice the figure approaching until a voice broke through his reverie. "Aadan." He turned, his breath catching at the sight of a man he never expected to see again. Sergeant Hartman. A fellow Marine, presumed dead in the same explosion that had claimed their squad. But here he was, alive and standing before Aadan, though with a noticeable limp and a hardened expression. "You look like you've seen a ghost," Hartman said with a wry smile. Aadan's voice faltered. I thought you were gone. Hartman's smile faded. I might as well have been. Lost a leg, but I survived. Unlike you, I didn't hide in a cemetery. The words hit Aadan like a blow, sharp and unrelenting. I'm not hiding, he shot back, though even he didn't believe it. Hartman stepped closer, his tone softening but losing none of its edge. You think staying here honors them? The men we lost? They'd want you to live, Aadan. Not just survive. Live. The weight of Hartman's words settled heavily on Aadan. For years, he had told himself that tending to the dead was his way of atoning for his survival. But now, he realized it was also a way to avoid the living, to avoid facing the pain he had left behind. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the cemetery, Aadan stood at a crossroads. He could continue as he was, existing in the company of ghosts, or he could take the first step back to the life he had abandoned. He turned to Hartman, his voice barely above a whisper. What if it's too late? Hartman's gaze softened. It's never too late, brother. But you have to take that step. Aadan looked back at the crowd, where the boy with the flag was now walking away, his mother's hand on his shoulder. He thought of his own son, of the years he had missed, the milestones he had let slip by. With a deep breath, Aadan made his decision. He approached the president, who was preparing to leave. Trump turned to him, his expression one of curiosity. Mr. President, Aadan began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Thank you for what you did today. It reminded me of something I'd forgotten, that the living need us just as much as the dead. Trump extended his hand, his grip firm and reassuring. It's never too late to make things right. As Aadan walked away from the cemetery, the weight on his shoulders felt lighter. For the first time in years, he felt a spark of hope, a chance to heal, to rebuild, to live. What would you do if given a second chance to right your wrongs? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that touch the heart and inspire the soul.